Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I'm A.A. Ron, and this is the Inclusive Dad Podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Stephanie Warlick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to speak to you today.
Thank you. Why don't you just start us off, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am the founder and CEO of 5 Foot View Consulting. My primary work is to serve as a fractional COO for companies. I also specialize in HR, but I happen to have authored a book last year called Dark and Silent Office, a digital accessibility guidebook for inclusive communication in the workplace.
That's awesome. Can you tell me what a fractional or COO or CEO is?
Sure. So COO stands for Chief Operating Officer.
Okay.
The fractional just means part-time. And
Oh.
so I go to a variety of virtually go to a variety of companies and serve their needs, whether it's 5 hours a month, 5 hours a week, and
Okay.
help them relieve burdens off the owner's shoulders so that they can work on what they do best and want to perform. And I put out the fires and give them a 30 years of experience that most small businesses really can't afford in terms of a COO, and maybe don't have enough full-time work, but help them get done what they need to so that our small business can grow.
Awesome. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, no problem. I use it so frequently that I do
Yeah.
forget that it's still a relatively new term, although fractional executives, fractional chief marketing officers, fractional CFOs, all of the C-suites are really coming out in fractional work. And because so many small businesses have opened in the last few years and they do need leaders that they can't afford, the fractional work is really coming out. It's probably always traditionally been a consultant, but it's really specializing in those key roles.
Yeah, that's great. What is your definition of inclusion?
I have never been asked that question. Well, you might have stumped me. What is my definition of inclusion? I mean, it's not that I haven't thought about this so many times. How can I put this in words for you? For me, it is being open, individuals being open, companies being open, schools, communities being open, and welcoming to anyone of all abilities.
Yeah, that's a good definition.
Thanks.
Yeah. What led you to your current career path?
Gosh, it was a windy road. I I started out in human resources in a small family business in high school and college. So really, human resources is where I started. And then I joined my husband in the Washington, D.C. area running a small business, promotional marketing, and loved that. We had a great time. But at some point when our twins were maybe 12-ish, we decided that we didn't want to have one source of income. And I had the opportunity to go into government contracting. So while I had experiences in our small business with accounting and finance, customer service, procurement, warehousing, fulfillment, quality, all of those types of business back office things, jumping over to government contract, I all of a sudden had the opportunity to do those things for a $4 billion company, not a small business. So I went through 2 government contractors over a 12-year period and continued that work. Then ended up at a software development company that was a digital accessibility company.
Okay.
And I served there as a chief administrative officer, again, doing contracts, finance, HR, recruiting, accounting, all of the back office sales operations. And after a year and a half of being there, I think I was around 50-ish. I just said, I want more. Like, I'm not passionate about what I'm doing. I really thought long and hard about what do I love to do. And I kept coming back to, I love running small businesses. And I don't want to just run mine. I want to take everything that I've learned over these last many years and share that knowledge with small business owners.
Mhm.
Because gosh, if I had had that when I started my small business many years ago with my husband,
Right.
well, anyway, I love running small businesses. So I just made the decision to go back out on my own and consult and support small businesses to help them grow.
That's great.
And I'm having a blast.
Yeah. So what? It sounds like you've been kind of in all different sizes of businesses. What about like small businesses do you like more than, let's say, like the $4 billion business?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me personally, what I like best is I work better seeing the beginning and the end of processes and not just being somewhere in the middle
Okay.
of a task or a project and not truly understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing when something gets handed to me halfway completed.
Yeah.
And then not really seeing it go to full completion. I love growing things. I love the slogan, build it and they will come. I love creating things and seeing it to fruition. And I really think that you have the opportunity to be impactful in small businesses that often in large businesses gets lost.
Yeah. That's great. What is digital accessibility and content accessibility?
Yeah, digital accessibility is the practice of making websites and content digitally accessible to individuals that are hearing impaired and visually impaired, or to all abilities. So, for instance, it would be having closed captions on the screen. It would be using fonts that are a size that is readable for individuals. The font that you use on your screen, that our names are in, is nice and bold with no serifs. It would be having alt tags on images within documents or on videos or on what else? I guess embedded into documents, so that individuals that use screen readers can understand what is being shown on an image. So that's digital accessibility. I really focus more on the content accessibility
Sure.
because as an HR professional, I don't communicate with my peers through a website. I communicate with them via Excel, email, chat, text messages. So I try and help people within the workplace be more accessible in their communication, but specifically around their content so that they can collaborate effectively with their peers that have all different types of abilities.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know about like website accessibility, but like I just think my bachelor's is in accounting, so that's what I did all the time was like Excel spreadsheets. Like how accessible is like an Excel spreadsheet to like screen readers and stuff?
I don't know that answer, to be honest with you, but here's how I would say about
Sure.
Excel, how
Yeah.
to make it. So all the Microsoft Office products have accessibility checkers in them, and we'll tell you right there if it's accessible or not, or how to improve it. I'm going to look that up for you because I haven't done that. Here's how I make Excel accessible: the
Sure.
font size, the font choice. If it's a graph, I make sure that the labels of the images are clear,
Sure.
either clear labels, or if it needs an alt tag, it has that. Also, if the chart or graph that might be shown in Excel, I make sure that there's high color contrast so that someone with color blindness isn't just seeing red and green, and that maybe there's patterns instead of colors. So that's how I make Excel
Okay.
accessible.
That's great. So one thing I've been trying to do is try to, like if I post on, let's say, Facebook or LinkedIn, have like those image descriptions. I can describe like the images in the post.
That's
But
right.
when I'm trying to when I do that though, like I've not been able to find like a easy way to do that for one, and then number two is like there's everyone you try like does it differently. Is there like, do you have anything you recommend if I have like creating a social media post and I want that, image text? Is there like a tool you would recommend that would kind of make it the way it should be?
Each of the systems and tools that I know have different alt tag means. If
Right.
you're having trouble with a very specific social that maybe doesn't have a good process for alt tags, you can always type a label underneath the image that defines what the name of
Right.
it and what it's showing. and
Okay.
that the screen reader would be able to read the
Sure.
content underneath the image.
Is there like a standard format that should be in? Because like that's another thing. It's like some people do it this way, some people do it this way. Is there not like a standard format for that? Like if you're typing it underneath?
I recommend left indent and not indenting things whenever you're typing. Clear information. If you use bullets, they should be true bullets.
Yep.
Not using all caps is a good practice.
Okay.
Not using italics is a good practice. And a clear, just a clear font.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started doing that on a post that I put on LinkedIn, and somebody messaged me and was like, "You don't need to do that." And whatever, it's already there. And I was like, well, there's other people that are doing this. They're like, well, they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, it's like some people that are involved heavily in the disability like world and community, and they're doing it. So I'm like, I looked at who the person was commenting on my stuff, and I was like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. So I just tried to start to do better, and then I was still getting like crap about it. So it was kind of weird.
I think I have another task to check and go. In full transparency, I have a marketer that does it for me on LinkedIn. So I
Okay.
actually don't do it. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah.
But if they don't have the capability of taking an alt tag, then certainly putting the text underneath that. I just haven't seen that in a while, so I'm not sure. We do post every day on LinkedIn and we do check for accessibility, but I don't personally do it. So you have asked me a few questions. So to be fully transparent, I'm not a technical person. So the book that I wrote is really non-technical. It really talks about the concept of we could do better.
Sure.
We can be inclusive. We can take little steps, because companies sometimes want to say, well, we don't have money for budget to be inclusive, or that's too much work. The concepts that I teach in the book are things that individuals that have no technical skills, like me, that don't have any money, can easily apply just by using the software that's in front of us every day.
Sure.
And really just take a step to do better. I like to say, let's move random acts of kindness toward intentional acts of inclusion.
Right.
Because it's got to start somewhere. And it could be as simple as you're learning to say thank you in sign language, in case you run across someone who does speak American Sign Language. Just little acts that we can do that mean so much to individuals that communicate differently than we do.
Right. So how did you become like so passionate about the accessibility piece? Was it just because of working for that company?
It was triggered by working for that company.
Okay.
I was a new employee there in the C-suite. So excited to be in this job, working for a company that was doing good for the world. And almost immediately, I recognized I did not have the skills and abilities to communicate with my peers that were hearing impaired and visually impaired. And I was embarrassed, ashamed, kind of disgusted with myself, disappointed in my educators to that point. I'm wondering, like, how did I get to be a 50-year professional and have no idea how to do this?
Right.
I'm supposed to communicate with this person and give them their benefits package, and it's not accessible. I need to contact this colleague, and I don't know how to do that because they don't speak on the phone. What do I do?
Right.
So I really was ashamed, and I thought, that's kind of embarrassing. Here I am, a senior professional in an organization, a senior HR person. And if I don't know this at the level of experience that I have, then I know there's lots of individuals out there that don't have this. So that's really when I made it my passion. I tend to find things that are gaps in the world and try and solve them. I don't know why I decided it's my mission, other than that I usually gravitate toward things that need to be solved and just try and fix them. I do suspect I'm going to get a little cheesy on you for 1 second, but I did grow to be so passionate about it and develop an advocacy that I don't know exactly where it came from, because most individuals that have that don't perform inclusion or accessibility tactics and things like that are because they have a lack of awareness. They haven't had someone close in their life with um, challenges or other abilities or different abilities. So they have a lack of awareness, and it's not necessarily that they don't care, but you have to have awareness before you can even begin
Yeah.
to learn about something or begin to care about it. Once I was aware, I couldn't stop. I was like, this is crazy. I have to do something. I can be better here.
Yeah.
And I need to be better. I can't walk away from it. It's sort of like the analogy that I use. I've already said stand in the gap. And that's something that I teach about, really taking action when you see something needs to be done. But the other analogy I give, it's sort of like walking down the hall somewhere and seeing a piece of garbage or crumpled piece of paper that you know shouldn't be there. And
Yeah.
you don't just leave pieces of garbage, you pick it up. So it's kind of taking action and grabbing something and doing something with it because you have the ability to, and you know it's in the best interest of the community.
Right.
So it kind of just blossomed from there.
Yeah. Have you always been included?
No. So I guess there's a part of me that um you know, and I have been privileged. I have my vision, I have my hearing, I am ADD, and that posed some challenges for me when I was a little younger and in school, some school difficulties. But no, I mean, there's always that mean girls in high school that
Right.
make fun of you and push you out and disclude you and don't invite you to the party. And you know, certainly other scenarios when I've been a new person in a working environment, you know, if an individual felt threatened about me coming into the workplace, I was, you know, discluded from meetings or information and things like that. So it's painful. And I do believe if anyone has experienced that pain of being left out and not included and think, why not? Like, I'm a nice person, I'm fun, I'm funny. Just give me a chance. You're just
Right.
looking for a chance. Like, I don't know. I think with that awareness, or at least I hope that people would just say, I can do better. Like, why wouldn't they be included? The more the merrier.
Yeah, and I think that what you kind of just said stuck out, like just give them a chance. I think that was part of it for me and my daughter. It's like just because she was on an IEP, so there's like 13 categories. She qualified in multiple of them, and just because she checks all those boxes, that doesn't mean she needs to go to this specific program. And I mean, she should have a chance to be in that general education class just like her peers. But I mean, just because just why didn't she have that chance to be able to try it there and get the supports in that setting? Why did you have to send her to the segregated classroom? So that's a big part of it for me too. Is like just because you look different or have different abilities or different needs, that just didn't make you have a different path in life from the beginning. You should be able to at least have the same chance to be able to do it like everybody else.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that response, we talked about that a little before the podcast, but sometimes that's response because educators need to take the path of least resistance and it's easier. And maybe not just educators, but administrations and things like that. It's easier, but even in the workplace, and I can see a similarity here, other individuals that don't have disabilities or challenges feel not equipped to have conversations with people. They almost they don't want to embarrass the person, so they behave like there's not that giant elephant in the room and don't know what to say or how to ask. How do I help you? Or what do you do? They just assume that there's a barrier there. And it's the other individual's, challenge and problem because they don't know how to communicate. So I just say to folks, listen, the individual that you're communicating with knows that they have a disability and that they are different. Your lack of ability to communicate that to them or have an open and transparent conversation with them doesn't make it go away.
Right.
So just say, how can I best communicate with you?
Yeah.
Or if they, we do a lot of teaching about, respect and personal space, because individuals that are in wheelchairs sometimes get pushed, or
Yep.
people will grab doors because they
Right.
think they're helping, and not realizing that sometimes people don't want or need help, and that
Yep.
their personal space and their chair or their visual cane or whatever it may be need to be respected, as if it's an extension of their body.
Yeah.
But it's everybody else's inability to communicate, because we haven't been taught socially how to just, hey, just talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great, that is a great point, because I mean, growing up, I didn't have anybody around me with a disability. Don't remember talking about it or anything, so I didn't learn any of that stuff. So that is a great part of it, just the awareness. And you need to, if you don't know, like you said, if you don't know those things, you're not trying to be mean. You don't know what you don't know. So that's also a great point. Yeah, I've heard a lot of many people, like in wheelchairs, like they view the wheelchair as like an extension of their body. So if you are like coming up behind them and pushing, they do take that as a invasion of private space. So that's very important for sure.
Right. It is stunning, or grab, I have peers that are visually impaired, and folks will just grab their arm and kind of guide them, and like,
Right.
how would you like to someone just grab you and start moving you around?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, part of why I'm doing the podcast is just to talk about inclusion, but just like sharing people's stories, just like talking with people and allowing them to get their story out. I mean, you learn things. I have a friend who, I asked him, what kind of struggles he comes across, and he told me that often when he has cerebral palsy, he can walk and talk, but if he goes out with somebody to eat, if they're taking orders, often they'll ask the people he's with what he wants to eat when he can clearly tell them himself. So just things like that too, that just the default to be you ask them directly, and if they're not able to do it and somebody with them needs to help, then that's what happens. But you shouldn't just default to the person with them. Or it happens with me and my daughter too. If we go to the doctor, it's gotten better more recently, but many times you go to the doctor and they look at me and ask what her name is and her birthday is. So I just look at her and like, hey, can you tell them your name and birthday? But just simple things like that too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that trying, again, bringing the awareness, trying to do better, is really all we can do, and we will make mistakes. Those
Right.
that are learning, and I'm still learning even after I wrote a book. Since
Yeah.
you like stories, I'll tell you that I was speaking with one of my coworkers that was visually impaired, and he was describing to me how he was building a home, and that it was one of the most difficult challenges was to really pick all the fixtures and the color of the light switches and the ceiling fans, all the features that he had to pick for the home.
Right.
And I, without thinking, said something like, "Oh, you have to place the light switches," because in my mind I was thinking, and my husband looked at me across the room. He said, "Did you really just ask the individual that is blind if he needed the light switches?"
Right.
Unfortunately, this man was so gracious, and I immediately then said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know. I just kind of flubbed it all up." And he said,
Yeah.
"Well, Steph, it's okay, because I have friends that come over and they need lights.
Right.
Just because I see in the dark doesn't mean they do." And again, I just was trying to compose myself, but he was really compassionate, and to me, for
Right.
making the mistake, and forgiving. He also really shared a good point with me. This particular individual lost his vision as a teenager, so he knew colors
Okay.
and textures and things like that, and wanted things described to him. Now, as someone who was fully visually impaired, fully blind, to use colors in describing things to him, because he could imagine that. But that type of communication doesn't work for someone who's never been able to see.
Yeah.
So it just really kind of emphasizes that every person is different and their needs are different. So just because
Yeah.
two people have the same disability doesn't mean they have the same needs or communicate in the same way. And those that are hearing impaired, not everybody doesn't
Yeah.
uses American Sign Language, and other people don't read lips. So just talking to individuals about their needs and their ability to communicate and what works for them is the best thing to have an effective conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard the saying before, like, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Just a reminder.
Yeah,
that,
right.
They're not all the same.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're just like we're all individuals.
Yeah. What is the best advice you can give a budding entrepreneur?
I think the greatest thing that I learned as an entrepreneur, and I've owned 4 different businesses in my life, and that is when you're successful, document what makes you successful so that you can replicate it. And when something's not working, calling quits on a project, on a business, on a division, on anything within the business is not quitting. It's making a smart business decision when it's not working.
Right.
I always grew up that if you worked harder, you would find success.
Yep.
And it took me a long time to realize that making a business decision that was in the best interest of the business because it was not profitable wasn't quitting. It was just good business.
Right.
And so I don't like to lead or start with that. That's why I also say document the good things and keep doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great advice because I was thought the same thing. I mean, if it's not going, if something's not going right, just work harder and it'll fix itself. That isn't always a smart move. That's great advice for sure.
Thank you.
A
A lesson hard learned.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think we can use empathy to be more inclusive?
Well, you asked me, have I ever been included or not included?
Yeah.
I think it's always prudent advice to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And to me, that is a way to bring out empathy to say, how would I feel if I were in that position? And by doing so, recognizing that that doesn't feel good, and you can use your own resources to be more inclusive. There's so many studies now, although DEI, inclusivity, and all that are getting really a tough rap right now.
Yeah.
Really the business aspect that I try and focus on, because sometimes, unfortunately, being a good person is not compelling enough to people, which kind of baffles me.
Yeah.
But it is good for business.
Right.
Diverse groups, different mindsets, different kinds of thinking, different ways of thinking, individuals that come together and form those types of team make the strongest businesses. So I would just say, to answer your direct question, using empathy and putting yourself in that person's shoes and recognizing doesn't feel good, and making positive change toward inclusivity is the best thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. What is one tip you can share to help our listeners be more inclusive today? So just something simple they can start doing today to be more inclusive.
Let's just say turn on closed captions. I mean, my book has a listing of simple acts that they can do that are low cost and no effort, but closed captions.
Sure.
That's a great one. So because that helps individuals with screen readers that are hearing impaired, that process differently intellectually, helps. Sometimes, while I've not been diagnosed with a hearing problem, sometimes I don't hear well. And if I look at subtitles and captions, I can follow the conversations.
Yeah.
We also work with individuals, or I work with individuals from around the world with a variety of different accents, and sometimes I can't discern what's
Oh.
being said just because of an accent. So that also helps me process to have effective conversation. So it's a really great idea just to turn that feature on when you're participating in a virtual meeting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a great point because I mean, actually, when I'm watching like Netflix, I always have the close or the captions or the subtitles on. Just it
Yeah.
helps me to watch stuff. So yeah, and things like that too, where it's simple. You turn it on, and then they're people without disabilities. It benefits them too, just like curb cuts and those kind of things. It's not just for people in wheelchairs. Somebody that's older has trouble walking, or parents with strollers. It's just it helps everybody. It's not just specifically for like somebody who's disabled. So it's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the best place everybody can connect with you?
My best website is stephaniewarlick.com.
Okay.
That has information about my 5-foot view consulting as well as my books.
Awesome. Is there
Thank
anything you want to share that we haven't discussed?
No, maybe I could just reiterate my slogan. And that is, let's move random acts of kindness toward intentional acts of inclusion.
There you go. Ready for the last question?
Oh boy, I think I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Do you like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
I have never had it.
Never had it.
Isn't that option D? I've honestly never had it, so I don't know. I'll reserve the right to give you that answer when I have it.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I live in Austin, Minnesota, where the spam museum's located, and then where they make spam. So I've been asking all my
Okay.
guests
All right.
if they eat spam. So it's interesting. It's usually super strong yes response, super strong no response, or your response you haven't had it. That's basically the truth.
Yeah, I have never had it. I'm not a big ham fan.
Yeah.
So I guess I never had the need to try it. But
And then
now I feel compelled to find that answer out for you along with the others.
there you go. And you obviously haven't lived in Hawaii or been there, because lots of people are like, I tried it when I was in Hawaii, because it's big in Hawaii.
I was very fortunate enough to go to Hawaii for my
Okay.
honeymoon many years ago, but again, I don't recall I recall eating Dole pineapples.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
don't recall eating spam.
Oh man, that's awesome. Oh, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.